tick the roadmap, the point which I have gave, which I am showing here. Tick those, and if you can tick 50% of those, then you can develop your React application by your own self. You don't need any help, and you can learn any tutorial. I mean, you can learn it from any places. Okay, but you should learn this thing. What you have to learn in order to be a good React developer? First thing, you should have the good knowledge of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you don't have knowledge in these three things, don't learn React. Simple. If you don't know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, I repeat, don't learn React. मेरा ट्यूटोरियल छोड़ दो, ये ट्यूटोरियल में नहीं बैठो. First, learn the basics of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, including ECMAScript. If you know this thing, you can start to learn React. If you don't know this thing, don't learn React. Okay. Then second part kya hoga? If you learn this thing, what other thing you need to learn in order to become a good React developer? You should have a knowledge of Git. You should have a knowledge of CLI, command line interface. You should know how to create project. You should know how this get, post, push, delete work. You should know some algorithm, some design pattern. Do we know this thing? I ask question from you too. Do you know this thing? HTML, CSS, and JavaScript?
I know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript a bit, but ECMAScript I don't know. JavaScript like to create to call the Ajax, okay, to actually control on the DOM like that. And
Okay.
CSS for a little bit CSS. Actually, I'm a backend developer
Hmm.
to actually how to flex and how to actually move a table from one place to another like
Yes,
that. The inline
yeah, that's
CSS.
it. Mean you should know. I mean, if you see the code, you should relate this thing like what is happening, right? If you know this thing, you are good. And Venkat, I think you are a front-end developer, right? So you should know this thing.
Yeah, Firdous.
Okay. So first thing is you should know this thing, then only you should learn React. If you don't know this thing, please learn this thing and then learn React. Okay. Then regarding these things, mean these are the things for any development. For if you're doing any development, you should know the gate. Since we will use the command line, you should know the command line. You should know how to create a project and its structure, where all codes resides and what is the use of those codes and how we can use. I mean, where should I put what kind of codes? Okay, this kind of thing you should know. You should know what is HTTPS. We will tell you to create an HTTP calls. So what kind of call it is? If we say a get call, then mean what? If you say put call, then mean what? If you say post call or put, mean when to use get, when to use post method, when to use put method. So these kind of things you should at least know that like what it is. I think you all know. Okay.
Put
Then some,
means that update,
yeah,
sir.
put mean update and how we send data input. Okay, this kind of thing. Input, where we pass data, how can we send header? Okay, how we receive the data in backend. So this kind of thing, theoretical knowledge you should have, because if you know this thing, then only you will develop this thing. Without knowing, you cannot develop. Then the algorithm and data structure of React. As I told earlier on, like React use virtual DOM. So how it use it, how it update the data. So those kind of thing, the architect or the algorithm on which React work, you should learn it from anywhere. Okay. Then some design pattern. Design pattern mean your application should be consistent. Every page it should be consistent. So we should follow some kind of design pattern or some kind of rules. Okay, like your function should be there in this place, your classes should be in this place. In this way we will call the function. In this way we will use the CSS. This kind of CSS we will use. This kind of buttons we will use. Those kind of design pattern you should follow. Okay. So these things, these are the first two prerequisites, or I would say roadmap. When you are learning React, you should first complete your HTML CSS knowledge, then have this thing like what are these, how we use Git, how we use command line interface, how we create a project, how we create the structure, what kind of algorithm it follow, and what should be our algorithm. I mean, if we develop a project, where I will keep everything to those kind of things. Then comes the third point, like you should understand what is React. People say React is a framework. So if you talk to somebody, they will say React is a JavaScript framework, right? When they give some kind of question and they don't know what is React, but they are working on React. So React is nothing but just it is just a library which has been developed to do a specific UI task. Okay, that's it. It's like a specific task key to interact the JS with HTML by use of the component. Okay, and for interaction is it use a new kind of language that is called JSX. Beyond this, there is no work of React. Beyond this, if we want to make anything else, we have to use other modules, other libraries. Like if we want to design something and we need CSS, we have to use Bootstrap. So Bootstrap is also a library which has been developed to give you a design in your UI. So similar to Bootstrap, React is also a library which has been developed to do a specific task. So I think our roadmap for the first 3 points we are clear, right? What we have to learn in to be a good React developer. Then you should know how to set up your development environment. I mean how to set up your projects. You should know like where I should keep my CDNs, where I should include any files, where I mean how can I make any CSS globals, how can I make CSS to work for a specific page. Okay, how can we write our component, where should we write our component, how to include our component. So those kind of setups you should know before going uh, for any development of any project. Fifth point, you should know to be a good developer, to be a good React developer, is the component. Like what is component, how we can create a component, how to pass a value in a component, how to import it, and how to reuse it.
Firdous sir,
Yes.
if I don't know ECMA script, okay, the ECMA on the advanced
Uh,
JavaScript,
yeah, don't
then can I
no, no.
learn React?
Yeah. You should know 5 6 minutes. I would say 10 functions. Okay, you should know how the 10 functions are working. I have given most of the examples, so that's it. In ECMA script, you have to learn only those things.
Okay.
In this document, you will find those functions. Right. So till here, any dot like what should I do in order to be a good React developer? I mean, what we have to do, we have to write somewhere in your mobiles or any place and tick. I mean, if you learn this thing, just tick this thing like, okay, I have learned this thing. And if you can, if out of this 25 point, 24 point, if you know at least 12 point, you can be a developer. Nobody can stop you to develop the front end using React. Okay. So the fifth thing is component. I mean, you should know what is component, how it works, how can we create it component, how can we pass value, import and export, and reuse the component. Sixth point, I mean, which is inside in our roadmap, like we should learn the JSX. Mean how we write a code in JSX, where I will call an HTML, where I will write the JS code, how we call our functions. Okay, how we bind our HTML and JS and all those things you should learn, right? So our seventh point, which comes in our React JS learning, is state in React. I mean, you should know like how to use state in React. State means it's a place where we have all the data, all the properties, okay, of our component defines. So how we can write those properties, how we can use those properties, how we can pass those properties from one component to another component, those kind of things. Okay, if you know this, it mean then comes props. Props mean It's a way of passing data from parent component to child or child to parent. So you should know how we can pass data from one component to another by using of props. Okay, then you should know how we can list our data, mean display our data from any place. It can be from array or it can be from HTTP call or any place. I mean, if you get an array, then how you can list those data in your UI. Okay. Then you should know the life cycle of React, like how the life cycle of React worked and all those things. Then come the styling. I mean, if you know how to create your component, if you can populate a simple HTML form, okay, or HTML list, then you should know to style your component. You can use anything. You can use Bootstrap, you can use Tailwind, Chakra UI, or MUI, whichever thing you want, you can choose and style your page. Okay. Then the 12 point come when you do the styling, then you should know how to work on any form. How can you add data? How can you retrieve data? How can you save data in any form by using of React? Then when you worked on one form, then by to use multiple form or multiple pages, how we can use the multiple pages, how we can use routing in our applications. Okay. After that, you will start to handle the data. I mean, how can we pass data in a form, or how can we read data from the form, how can we validate data, how can we save data. So those kind of things you should know. I mean, you should know. Okay. Then the reconciliation process that's come in advance. I mean, when you do that, when you went to the advanced level, when you know how to create a simple HTML, how to create a form, how to read the data, how to put the data, then you should know this kind of process, reconciliation
Sir,
process
sir, did
in
you,
React. Yeah.
sorry, sir, sir, did you share your screen?
Yes, I was.
No,
Did
sir.
I? Oh, yeah,
It's
yeah,
not.
I am sharing. I am sharing my screen. Okay. Okay, sorry. I started the recording but did not share. Okay, sorry for this. Sorry for this. So you can go to this document. Okay, in this document I have written everything. Then the 16th
Uh,
point, then the 16th point should be you should know React hook. Okay, how this React hook working. Okay, and then the custom mean how can you create a custom React hook? So React hook, see, React hook are the different way. Mean 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 hooks are the way where we can transfer data. Okay, transfer data or read data in our React. So you should know how can we read data, how can we play with data in React. Then in React hook, you will see two, I would say, two most common hooks that you can see in React code. One is use state and second is use effect. Okay, so there are multiple hook. I would say dozens of hook are there, but these two are the most common hook. So you should know when to use this, how to use this. Okay, then you should know how to create some custom hook by your own self. Then how can we pass the data? I mean you should know the context in React. Context means if you have multiple components. Okay, so you should know how to pass your data from one component to other component irrespective of their relationship. I mean, they can be uh, parent to child relationship, or they can be not in any relationship. Then also we can pass the data from one component to another component by the help of this context in React. Okay, by using this context hook, I would say. Then you should know how to add lazy loading in React. Okay, how can you split your code, split your component, and load your component based on your need, because React use virtual DOM. Okay, and due to that, it has it gives powers also. But if your application become very huge, and the people who is work who is who is opening the website in her machine, if its memory are low, then virtual memory use the uh, your memory, your machine memory. And if your application are very large, okay, then sometimes React can become slower. Okay, so in order to make the application faster, we have to use lazy loading. So how can we use those things? How can we use portals in React? Okay, how can we do state management in React? How can we do theming in designing? Okay, our web application, like what kind of theme we should have. I mean, what kind of color I will use, what kind of text I will use. I mean, once you do all those kind of development, then you will go for the beautification. Like how can we make our application faster? How can we make application more um, user friendly? I would say. Okay, then some pattern anti pattern mean the way in some industry standards, okay, that we can use to complete our work. So so these are the things, these are the, I would say, uh, roadmap which you should follow. And if you can know out of this 24, if you can know 12 or 14, or I would say 15 should be the benchmark. If you know this 15 point, then you are a good React developer, and nobody can stop you to develop an application in React. Any question with this?
Please share the link of this GitHub.
I think I have already shared. I have already shared here. Okay.
Oh,
What happened? Somebody started the recording and then stopped. Okay. Let me stop recording.